Okay, I'm going to read an article from invw.org, which is Investigate West, investigative journalism for the Pacific Northwest, called Campus Sexual Assault, Does Honor Code System Squelch Justice at Oregon School, by Lee Vandervoo, written June 22, 2010. Three young women tell similar stories of being discouraged from calling police after reporting sexual assault to Reed College authorities, and of a campus investigatory process so intensely secretive one student was unsure she could even talk to her parents about it. The students' allegations were not vetted by trained investigators or faculty, but by a student board without expertise in sexual assault. Former Reed administrator Lisa Moore, a licensed social worker, confirms that she took one of the students to the health center when she came to her crying and saying she had been raped by a former boyfriend in January of 2009, but did not know the student was later turned away without an appointment. Moore has since left Reed and now works at Boston University, in part because of her inability to change the Reed system. None of the recommendations of sexual assault task force she assembled has been implemented, she said. Two outside experts in how colleges handle sexual assaults criticized the system used by the 1,400 student Reed, a highly secretive process based on a student honor code, and enforced by a student judicial board in which students act as a fact-finding committee and participants are barred from discussing their cases with anyone except a designated advocate, a procedural aide, and medical professionals. In Oregon, there is a move toward reforms in how public colleges and universities handle allegations of sexual assault brought by students, but change has been slow and private schools are not bound by the new requirements. After the daughter of then president of the Oregon State Board of Higher Education, Henry Lorenzen, brought a claim of rape against a fellow student at the University of California at Berkeley. Lorenzen became active on the issue and is now chair of the board's subcommittee on sexual assault. In addition to strengthening state schools' definition of sexual assault, the Oregon subcommittee is looking at tougher discipline for students who commit sexual assault and widening school jurisdictions to handle assaults that take place on campus, off campus. But victims advocates say little has changed on most campuses in the Pacific Northwest and across the nation, and few victims get the help they need. They point to statistics reported by the U.S. Department of Justice in a 2000 report that show that 1 in 5 college women will experience rape or attempted rape in their 4-year college term. A recent year-long investigation by the Center for Public Integrity in Washington, D.C. illustrates some of the issues. The center interviewed 50 experts familiar with the campus disciplinary process, examined 10 years of complaints filed under institutions with the U.S. Education Department under Title IX and the Clery Act, as well as 33 female students who have reported being sexually assaulted by other students. The investigation found that students found responsible for alleged sexual assault on college campuses often face little or no consequences for their acts, while the victims' lives are frequently left in turmoil. Victims report a lack of institutional support and even disciplinary action. Often victims leave school while the alleged attackers graduate, the center's investigation found. What we see happening at the university level is a kind of microcosm of what we encounter in larger society, which is that it makes everybody uncomfortable to talk about non-consensual sexual contact, i.e. rape, about sexual assault, said Jessica Minlin, the National Director of Training and Technical Assistant for the Victims' Rights Law Center, VRLC, a nonprofit organization with an office in Portland that is dedicated to transforming the nation's legal response to sexual assault. So what we find is that they would rather characterize it as a misunderstanding. I don't think general attitudes about sexual assault have changed in the last 30 years I've been doing it, said Rebecca Rowe, a Seattle-based attorney who specializes in sexual assault cases. It's very, very depressing. College-age women are at a very high risk for sexual violence, said Adam Shipman, Director of Education and Advocacy for the Sexual Assault and Family Trauma Response Center in Spokane, which sees students from Washington State University, Eastern Washington University, and Gonzaga University. Many students are away from home and in dating relationships for the first time. They are experimenting with new, sometimes risky behaviors, such as drinking and drugs, as they test their independence. That activity, combined with a lack of understanding about the definitions of consent, makes them more vulnerable to non-consensual sex, i.e. rape. It's more common than we'd like to think. Getting drunk and having sex are pretty standard plot for... I could skip this. Wow. Okay, so a review of 10 sexual assault incidents at Reed, heard by the Judicial Board since 2004, shows sanctions recommended by the board and approved by college president Colin Diver have varied in severity, but all have been minor compared to court sanctions that had if the cases had gone through judicial system and the perpetrators been convicted of sexual assault charges. In a 2006 case, the Judicial Board recommended community service, a 3-term suspension, a psychological assessment, and a ban on drugs and alcohol for a student who was found to have sexually assaulted 3 women, noting that a stiffer penalty such as expulsion would eliminate the possibility for behavioral change, according to the Judicial Board summary. Shipman has also worked in sexual prevention for 20 years. He blasted the decision to allow a 3-time perpetrator re-entry into the college. That shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what sexual assault is. That guy needed to go to jail, Shipman said. He said Reed is failing to take sexual assault seriously and that the college's policies are counter to what we are supposed to be doing in 2010. An all-student fact-finding committee and no investigation of rape on campus by faculty or campus security is a serious concern. Sexual assault isn't a he said, she said issue. It's a crime. They're treating it like something that can be resolved by a committee. Looking back on the decision to allow a 3-time sexual assailant to return to campus, however, Diver, the college president, said, it might have been that under the sexual assault theories that are now in vogue, this should have been an expulsion. Whoa. Diver, who emphasized that he, not the student board, has the final say on disciplinary matters, said the victims were on track to graduate before the assailant, rapist, returned to campus. Last year, the Judicial Board delayed hearing a case alleging a violent sexual assault by a student who is allegedly dangerous and in possession of a weapon because of time constraints. Diver approached the delay. He emphasized the college officials immediately searched the dorm room of the student charged with possessing a weapon and found none. He also said the complainant in that case agreed to a delay of the hearing. The case was eventually heard by a faculty-student board that could hear the cases in lieu of the all-student judicial board during a semester break. The board found that an assault occurred and recommended penalties that were then increased by Diver to a 1-semester suspension and no contact order and counseling. Diver said a 1-semester suspension is not a minor penalty for sexual assault because it stays on a student's record. I do think they're learning, he said. How can I be sure of that? Wow, I'm disgusted. At 66, Diver says he lacks perspective on normal conduct for students raised in a culture. He says he appreciates... Okay. Steve Thompson, Sexual Aggression Services Director at Central Michigan University, said an effective program should not put student victims in hearings at all. At Central Michigan, where Thompson built the university's sexual assault response program into a national model for addressing campus assault, faculty are steeped in education about sexual assault, work closely with police and prosecutors, and effectively enforce discipline according to the victim's wishes. Men who assault... See, that's where California is different, because you don't leave it up to the victim of domestic violence to prosecute. They have to prosecute. Men who assault people they know, their profile is... Okay, Oregon State University is also known for its aggressive investigation into sexual assaults and a student conduct process that aims to empower survivors and guard against future trauma. OSU... Change began coming to Oregon state system after Lorenzen experienced what he saw as a lackluster investigation, lack of sympathy, lack of resources, and disbelief with which the Berkeley officials greeted his daughter when she brought her allegation of being raped on campus club outing 4 years ago. In the total Reed College caseload of 7 reports involving 10 victims since 2004, the Judicial Board found 5 male students responsible for sexual assaults. 2 other male students were found responsible for violations other than rape or assault. The perpetrators' penalties ranged from community service, therapy, and workshops to temporary suspensions. Only 1 student was expelled. Reed reported another 5 sexual assault cases to the federal government under requirements by the Clery Act, a federal law that requires colleges to report sexual assault cases. But those cases were never heard by the Judicial Board, either because the complaints were handled by a mediator before they ever got to the board, or because no penalties were sought by the victims. Why should a victim have to be also a prosecutor in their own victimization? Diver said he had no knowledge. 1 student. Okay, well, that's enough. Read it. Rape it, read.